The media had been portraying it as a fringe movement, a small group of Republican lawmakers led by Senator Josh Hawley planning to use Wednesday's routine acceptance, usually routine, of the Electoral College results to push President Trump's claims of widespread election fraud. But that changed dramatically yesterday when Ted Cruz and 10 other GOP senators and senators-elect said they'll demand a special commission to conduct a 10-day audit in disputed swing states won by Joe Biden.
It's either for democracy or it's against democracy. Josh Hawley has come out very clearly against democracy today.
Senator Hawley's move is in conflict with the establishment rhinos and the radical Dems, the left-wing national media, and corporate America, all of whom have dismissed any talk of election irregularities.
And these lawmakers aren't even claiming they have evidence. This is just one more vain attempt to thwart the free and fair election of Joe Biden as the 46th president of the United States. It's undemocratic, it's un-American, and it will fail.
January 6th will tell us whether there are any in Congress willing to battle for the America that those soldiers fought for, the one that you and I believe in.
Kat Timpf, Republican senators who oppose these efforts say it creates an unnecessary spectacle that, with Democrats controlling the House, basically has no chance of success. But with even Vice President Pence supporting these efforts now, at least lending rhetorical support, doesn't that make it impossible for the press to just write it off?
Yeah, it certainly does. And many have made the point, particularly thinking of that editorial in the New York Post before this effort was all happening, that this kind of distracts from Georgia, which is super important, and even perhaps might make people less likely to vote if they think it's all rigged anyway. Maybe not. Maybe they'll be encouraged by more volunteers looking to watch these things. But I think, again, people are out of touch in much of the media, thinking, oh, you know, nobody really thinks this, nothing will really happen, when really there are a lot of people that really certainly do. And it comes down to engaging that and being aware so you're not super blindsided when something like this happens.
Yeah, Jillian Turner, with Ted Cruz and his Senate supporters wanting to create this special election audit commission, as was last done in 1877, I think it's harder for the press to minimize this, as has been happening. I think many in the press misjudged the determination of these opponents. You can't just write it off as in the lawsuit, the unsuccessful lawsuit by Congressman Louis Gohmert against Mike Pence. Is it now being elevated to a test of democracy?
Yes, with 12 senators backing not certifying the election results without an audit of them, absolutely, it's a test of democracy. I will say one of the senators who has signed on to this is Senator Marsha Blackburn. I had the opportunity to interview her on our air yesterday within the hour that they announced this new effort. And one of the things I asked her was what they hope to accomplish out of it by delaying 10 days with an audit. And she said to me, one of her first answers was, well, you know, Jillian, there has been resistance to President Trump and never Trumpers in Washington driving policy against his agenda this entire time. And I stopped her right there and I said, so is this political retribution? And she then said, no, of course not, and went on to explain herself. I think what the media is underestimating here is the opportunity that Republicans are seeing in this politically to drive home their message, which is that they don't believe that President-elect Biden won this fair and square. That's what they're trying to do here. I don't think any of them believe a 10-day audit is going to reverse the results of the election.
That's probably right. Richard Fowler, Senator Josh Hawley points out that the media had no problem when Democrats did this in 2017 after President Trump's election, and especially in 2005 after President Bush's reelection. Actually, Democrats pushed that to the point where Congress had to debate the whole thing. So a bit of a double standard here?
Listen, should the media cover this, Howie? They should, but they should cover it for exactly what it is, spectacle, right? Because in a court of law, just like in journalism, you have to have evidence, right? You have to have evidence. You have to have sources that say there was indeed election fraud. The election was indeed people were taken advantage, people cheated, but there's no evidence of that. We've seen many dozens of cases where there was no evidence of that. So once again, you're going to see Republicans play politics and the media will cover it. But I do hope the media covers it honestly for exactly what it is: fraud and an attack on our democracy.
There was also no evidence during those efforts by Democrats of what I guess was a symbolic protest.
Absolutely.
Okay, I got to move on here.
And those should be covered as spectacle as well.
Okay, Jillian, Kat mentioned the New York Post editorial. Let's put that up. Front page piece earlier this week saying, Mr. President, stop the insanity. You lost the election. You're cheering for an undemocratic coup. When you have the New York Post, the Wall Street Journal's conservative editorial page saying Trump is having fantasies about overturning the election, both of those newspapers share common ownership with Fox News. What does that say about the conservative media now turning on the president?
Well, it does seem that the Post and the Journal in particular have veered sharply away from President Trump over the last couple of weeks. What underrides that? My guess is as good as yours. I will say, though, to Richard's point a moment ago, political theater has become a bit of an oxymoron here in Washington. I would argue that's all that people have left these days. The act is as important as how the votes turn out, not for the millions of Americans who depend on these people to actually do things for them, but in terms of Washington's perspective on itself, the media's perspective on Washington. To dismiss something as political theater or a spectacle is to really miss the point.
Kat, I'll give you the last 20 seconds.
Yeah, look, it is something that is being taken very seriously. And I agree with Jillian, unfortunately, that political theater is basically just what politics is. Instead of doing things like reading bills, they're busy looking at how they can look to voters on the TV, on the internet. And I'm not surprised to see this. And I think we're going to see a lot more stuff like this.
Yeah, the reason there's a fertile climate for this is that every poll shows a majority of Republicans do not believe that Joe Biden won the election fairly, despite all the lawsuits, investigations, and so forth. All right. Thanks so much to Jillian Turner, Kat Timpf, Richard Fowler. Up next,